Hello, everybody. Welcome. Today, we are about to unbox and review the Segway Ninebot Kickscooter Max. This is their newest, latest, best scooter. And today we're going to find out if it really is the best scooter or not, because it's a little bit different from their previous scooter. It's got some advantages and supposedly some drawbacks. So let's find out if it's really as great as they say it is. Are you ready? Let's do this. So for starters, this scooter is capable of going 15.5 miles per hour, and that's 18.6 miles per hour if you're in the United States. There are different laws. So it also has 10-inch front and rear tires compared to 8 inches on most other models. It is IPX5 weather resistance, so rain and snow are okay, whereas other scooters die completely from rain. And there's a built-in headlight in the front, which is standard on most scooters, and a dual brake system, which combines the front and back wheel with electrical and drum brakes. This scooter is larger and heavier though, weighing in at 42 pounds, whereas the predecessor is 30 pounds. It also tops out at 40 miles of range compared to 28, so that's a big improvement. Improved uphill torque comes from a larger battery and a larger motor. It's not as nimble. When you're riding it, supposedly it's a little more of a wide load, and it's not as maneuverable as the quicker, thinner ES4. But other than that, it should be a hands-down victory for this scooter. The tires are air tires, so it's more comfortable and softer when you're riding. But of course, the trade-off for that comfort is that you do run the risk of getting a flat tire. So you'll just have to ride a little more carefully and avoid puncturing your tires. All right, it's time to open this bad boy up. Are you ready? Let's do this. Okay. Okay, and here first we have the power cable, and I notice it's not a power brick, it's just a cable, and that's because the brick is inside the scooter. That is another advantage, if you ask me, because carrying around a whole power brick is just it's just more weight, and if you're someone like me who's really concerned with weight, then just a cable is a lot better. Okay, here is looks like an air hose for pumping up your scooter tire. And that's pretty cool. We just talked about the air and the tires, so if you need to refill, you can attach this to any pump and you should be able to refill the air in your tires. Here we have a hex screwdriver or an Allen key, some Allen screws. Looks like we'll be assembling some parts of the scooter with that. And if you look in here, we have a quick start guide. It's a really thick, heavy book, so I'm sure there's some instructions in there. I'm going to put these aside for now. What else do we have? Looks like we've got the handlebar right here. Looks like the handlebar is actually connected with a wire over here. So if I'm not mistaken, I should be able to connect it before even taking it out of the box. Okay, so I'm going to carefully remove the plastic. And I'm going to carefully remove some more of the plastic right here. And I'm just going to put this down carefully and untape these so I can assemble it. Okay. And I've successfully removed the bubble wrap from here. Now I think I can just pop this into the shaft here, and then I should be able to just screw in all the parts. It's a bit of a firm situation here, so I don't want to apply too much pressure, but it looks like there's plenty of room in there for the cable. So if I just pop this in there, there. And then I'm guessing the screws that we talked about can go in here, and 2 more in the front, and 2 more in the side, and that's it. And it's 6. 6 screws should secure this. Okay, now if you come over here, you'll see that the latch system, it looks very complex. I'm sure it's easy to operate, but for now, we've got all these parts here, and it doesn't look like I can actually snap it in. Oh, actually I can. So I'm not sure if I can snap it in right now while it's in the box, but actually if I just push it, it looks like I can. I can just kind of pull this and tighten it shut. Oh, okay, so there's this plastic piece, which I guess is meant to hold the place here, and I can remove that perhaps as soon as I get this thing out of the box. Oh, okay, I spin it. I just have to spin it out of the way. Looks like I just have to spin it out of the way, and then I can close the latch. Okay, I'm not going to mess with it until I get it out of the box, but then you can see that this thing pokes into that hole there, and I guess just tightens the whole thing shut. So it's a dual mechanism for the latch. Okay, let's screw in our screws over here, and then we'll get to the next part. So if you'll notice with the screws here, I'm not screwing them in all the way at first. I just want to put them in halfway so that they can hold their position. And when I put all of them in, that's when I'll start to tighten all of the screws. Okay, and that's it. We're done. Just 6 screws. Secure this thing on nice and tight. And honestly, I gotta say, while I was screwing it in, I was taking a look up here, and everything looks really clean and crisp. Everything's just really well designed. It's brand new. Looks really nice. Here's the handlebar brake I was telling you about. It actually feels firm and good. And here's a nice little touch. We've got a bell. That's pretty cool. Right built onto it, so you don't have to buy a separate one. This clip is for the scooter when it hooks into the base. So you don't really need to mess with that. And this is the accelerator, so that will make you go faster. Here we have the power button, which I will not press yet until it's time to turn this thing on. All right, let's continue. All right, now we're gonna get this thing out of the box. We gotta be really careful while doing this so we don't bend anything or break anything. We're gonna take off whatever doesn't need to be in there. Oh, it's okay. Okay, it looks like that's all we need to take off for now. Ready? I'll grab it from the base. You just control the direction, okay? Oh. Okay, lift. All right, let's kick that box out of the way. All right. Oh, you know, it's heavy, but it's a nice heavy. It's not like an annoying heavy. There are some scooters that are 75 pounds, 100 pounds. This is only 42 pounds, so it's really not horrible. And if you come in and take a look close here, you can see that there's a good distance between the axle and the wheel, and you can see the motor is in the back. You know, this is another advantage over the ES4, is that with the motor being in the back versus the front, that means there's more weight in the back wheel rather than the front wheel. And what's good about that is that when you're moving fast and you run into a piece of concrete or a crack in the road, you really feel it when the weight hits it. But now that the weight is in the back, I wonder if the lightness in the front will make that more comfortable. Okay, so before I start playing with this awesome scooter and checking out the features and doing all that, I want to actually pack everything back in the box, and that's an important part of unboxing anything. You don't want to lose or break any of the packaging just in case you're going to ship it again. It's just great to keep everything perfectly intact. All right, I really do love how they taped all this. All right, let's unbag this wheel. If you want to lift this thing up a little bit carefully. There we go. Okay, that's perfect. Thank you. Okay. I'm excited. Are you? This looks awesome. All right, few things to observe here right off the bat is the deck for the Max is really thick. It goes down much further, but the clearance is still pretty high off the ground. I'm going to say that's about 3-4 inches off the ground. similar to the ES4. However, because of this extra space here for the deck, you're about 3, maybe 4 inches higher off the ground than you are with the ES4. Okay, which is fine to me. I don't think that's a problem. You're not really spending a lot of time kicking anyway, kicking off the ground. So being high off the ground normally isn't great, but since you're doing everything in a motorized way, then it really doesn't matter if you're that high off the ground. Okay, another thing I notice about the deck is it is definitely wider than the ES4. It's definitely longer, and I've known this. I've read it in the reviews. I've seen the pictures. Okay, now this mud flap is much better than the ES4 because when it's wet outside, I look at my backpack or shirt after riding, and my whole back is covered in spots and stuff because the mud guard is tiny and it stops about here, and so you have to buy a third-party extra mud flap to protect yourself from the splashing of the wheels. However, this one, it really cups the wheels well from both sides, and it goes down so far back, it's unbelievable. I also noticed that they read a electric brake here, which is different from the ES4, and I think that's definitely cooler. The ES4 has big lights here on the side, which light up when you're stopping, and that's okay, I guess. But either way, this red light all the way down by the floor is not the safest of measures for a scooter rider. You should definitely have a red light on your helmet or one of those vests that glow when headlights are looking at them for extra safety. So while this is great, it's not really the greatest when it comes to safety and visibility while riding. So if cars are coming by, or you know you're going to be riding with cars, you may want to invest in a little bit of extra safety there. Okay, I see in the front here the drum brake parts. You see that band connecting all the way up to the scooter handle into the brake. So this is definitely part of the brake, but you also see a second brake line emerging down here, and it goes into the tube and through the baseboard and to the back motorized wheel where the electric brake engages also while your drum brake engages. So you're getting 2 wheels worth of stopping power while you're riding, and that's amazing. That's really great that Segway upgraded that for the Max. Now I know that there are riders who actually adjust their brakes. You can tighten them. So there are bolts here and other parts where I'm sure if you tighten these bands here, you get a little bit of a tighter braking experience. And if that's something you're interested in, you might want to look up a tutorial on how to tighten the drum brake on the Ninebot Max. We're about ready to take this thing for a spin. It is definitely gorgeous though. The texture on the metal here is a little rough, so I guess that's just maybe for looks, but it's probably also better for grip if you're handling this thing. It's also probably better for durability. You know, if it's too smooth, this is an outdoor vehicle, so if it's too smooth, it's just going to get scuffed and scraped, whereas this rough texture just has an outdoorsy feeling to it and probably won't show marks as much. I like the color too. It's not exactly black. It's sort of a dark grayish gunmetal, but it also goes really well with the very distinct yellow highlights that you see throughout the scooter. And of course, if you know scooters, you know that this is the Xiaomi frame, so to speak. Segway decided that while their ES line has been very successful and great with its riders, that there's something to be said about the success of the Xiaomi frame. Therefore, they've gone with the Xiaomi frame for their next model, for their Segway Max, which is why it's more in line with the Xiaomi series scooters. However, that's not without numerous upgrades. Even the Xiaomi Pro, which is the later version of the Xiaomi, has a lot of deficiencies when compared to the Ninebot Max. Some of the differences, in case you're curious, are the fact that they used bigger wheels. So of course they had to redesign the wheel wells and probably the parts that hold the axles. So that's different from the Xiaomi Pro. They've also had to rewire a whole bunch of stuff in order to get these charger ports down here and the charging brick underneath here. And this deck is definitely larger than the Xiaomi Pros. This standing base here, the baseboard, is definitely longer and wider than the Xiaomi Pros. The whole thing is actually higher. It's a few inches higher. And also, the motor is in the back. So they had to rewire a lot of the technology that was being used in the Xiaomi Pro from running off a front wheel motor to redirect towards the back wheel being the motor. And we talked about how that weight distribution gets shifted to the back of the scooter rather than the front to avoid the impact and collision that you feel when you ride your scooter and it hits the front. In addition to those upgrades over the Xiaomi Pro, there is better battery life. There's a larger battery in here, so that's going to give you farther range, and the motor in the wheel is a 400 watt to 800 watt max power motor versus the Xiaomi Pros, which is 350 watts. So it's got a stronger motor, which they also say gives more torque to uphill riding. So you'll experience more pickup speed and more top speed going up inclines with the scooter than you would with the Xiaomi Pro. And then of course the dual line braking system we mentioned, where it stops via drum brake and electric braking, is improved over the Xiaomi Pro. So there is a lot. So at first glance, yes, it looks like the Xiaomi, but there's a lot going on here that is not happening in the Xiaomi Pro. In addition, the braking in the Xiaomi Pro is actually a rear disc brake, not a drum brake. So that's also different in the Xiaomi Pro. Now, I don't know the exact nuances of the drum brake versus the disc brake, but you do know that for a disc brake, there's normally a disc like you would see in a car brake, and there's two clamps that squeeze on that disc, and that's how the braking happens. Whereas here, I don't see a disc, so I'm not sure what exactly is going on with the braking when you do a press on that. Okay, air tires, in addition, on the Segway Max have some sort of self-healing gel, which is created by Segway, so it's not in the Xiaomi Pro. So these tires are supposed to have not complete immunity to flats, but some prevention, some sort of reparation going on to the tire if you do get a flat. So there's a gel in there sort of helping you. And from what I've understood from riders is that you can refill the tire and it will stay inflated for a time, maybe a couple days, and then you have to refill the tire again repeatedly. So it's giving you some leeway. It's not like if it's flat, that's it. You fill it up, it's still flat. You're completely done. You've got to change the tire if you're stranded somewhere. That can all be very inconvenient. Whereas with this, at least it buys you a little time. But it does not mean, hey, you're immune to flats and you're enjoying air and you're good to go. We'll see what the real world experience has to say about that. But it's something, and it is there. Okay. So here on the sticker information of the scooter. Now that G30P there means that it's the American model and it's 18.6 miles an hour, where if it doesn't have that P, it's the European model and it only tops out at 15.5 miles an hour, where you can go ahead and redirect the scooter to your nearest recycling bin. Just kidding. So before we power this thing up and continue on with this video, why don't you take a second to subscribe and hit like on this video if you're enjoying it so far. And if you're really enjoying it, maybe you can share it on your Facebook page or send a link out in a group text message to all your friends. All right, let's continue. Ba, ba, ba. Ba, ba. Error. Just kidding. Oh my God. Eco, drive, supercharge. Sport. I mean sport. Yeah. All right. But what do you think of that bell, huh? I mean, is that just the winner or what?
Why is it beeping?
You have to activate it first using the app. So without activating it, you will not get any movement on this thing.
Really?
Yeah. That's how it was with all the others. I'm sure it applies here too. There it is, guys. In case you're wondering, you just have to go to that setting, and once you get here, there's that activate button right there. Do you understand that there is a serious risk of injury or death? And so on and so forth, all that stuff. And it's true, guys. Really, I mean, this is a moving vehicle, and it moves really fast, faster than you can run at full speed. So that's fast enough where you can really get hurt. So always be safe. Always put on a helmet. Always, yep. So look at that guy in a sling. You'll be lucky if that's all that happens if you get hurt. Always put on safety gear. Always ride with caution. Anticipate people who might go off onto the road or onto your path. and slow down if you need to at any time. Do not ride this thing like a maniac. Yeah, there's all this stuff, which I guess I'll leave it in case you're wondering.
Forward through it.
No, you can't. It's a few seconds for each page, and you have to heed the warnings. The basement?
I don't like nothing. Oh, yeah.
You twisted it in?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see how much battery's in there right out the box. So if you go here and go to battery. Ooh, it's charged up to 57%. Which, let's see how much... yeah, that's a pretty big battery. It's got a total of 15,300 milliamperes. Go. Okay, so something else that differs on this scooter from the others is this closing latch mechanism. Now, to open it, you just have to pop this little ring out of place, and that allows you to now pull the latch here. You should be able to pull this. It's a little firm. Oh, maybe if I... Yeah, there we go. So now I can extend the handlebar downwards that way. And you actually want to get this loop right into that spot there. Now, this is a little plastic piece, and you're basically pulling up the whole weight of the scooter just on that plastic piece. So as long as you're not fidgeting with it too much or allowing it to rotate, it should be secure. But I don't know if I like this whole big heavy metal scooter all hinged on that one hook. So if you're folding it, you want to carry it from the base, the heavy part, not from the lighter, thinner part, if you want to really keep your scooter secure and avoid breaking anything. Here's another thing I noticed that's a difference between this scooter and the ES4. If you look at overall when it's folded, the height really comes far up because it's folding down from here. Whereas with the other one, it folds from much lower, and overall it's much flatter, and it doesn't go up this high. That's really not a huge deal. I mean, unless you're tucking it in somewhere where you have a very low clearance. So that is a difference to note. And earlier I was talking about the weight being shifted to the back here versus other scooters, versus the Xiaomi and versus the ES4. But there is something else to note about this scooter versus the ES4, which is definitely a huge advantage. And that thing is the ES4 contains a battery here in the rod shaft. So that makes this area even heavier, and then the wheel is heavier. So what happens is all the weight of the ES4 is all here high off the ground and in the front, ready to take all the impact and damage if you hit any bumps on the front with your wheel. Whereas this scooter, the weight of the battery is here in the deck, so it's really low. So that weight being low to the ground gives you a lower center of gravity, which is a huge advantage. You're less likely to topple over or to feel all of this impact in the front from hitting something. And then the wheel having the weight in the back also, again, is just keeping the weight away from the front and low to the ground. So I imagine this is a sturdier, more comfortable ride for those reasons as well. Okay, we're about to take this thing outside and see how it drives. Let's do it. Before we go, in case you were wondering, these are the different speeds. So if you double click here, Eco is going to give you a slow, steady ride, probably for new riders or people who want to save battery life. It'll take up much less battery and go much farther this way, but it'll be really slow. And I guess this is the average speed. And of course, the power hungry S or sport mode will give you the maximum amount of power while riding and will consume the most energy and give you the least distance range. However, this is probably how everyone will be riding their scooter. Of course, if you press the power button once, that's the headlight, and as you can see, the headlight has just turned on. And you can press it once more, and it's off. And it actually dims the light on the screen, just like a car would. So it means it's nighttime, and so a little bit of lighting here will get the job done. Whereas during the daytime, where your headlight is presumably off, now this is brighter so that you can see it in the daytime. So it does make sense. However, I will tell you this, I, for safety reasons, do like to leave my headlight on even during the day, because when I drive into oncoming traffic, I know that sounds ridiculous, but in Manhattan there's so many streets to go up and down through, that sometimes you'll take a bike lane going the wrong way, which is fine for a block or two, depending on where you're headed. But in that case, it just makes having the headlight on better for visibility for drivers who may not see you right away. The light just attracts the attention a little more. Okay. The handlebar is definitely taller on this than the ES4 too, right? I think the ES4 is like down to here. Yeah. All right, here we are right outside. We're about to fire this thing up and take it for a spin. All right, it's on. I'm gonna kick off and let's see. Wow. Okay, let me come back. Okay, immediately I can tell you I feel like a rich man. I feel like I'm driving an SUV. It's higher off the ground. It's incredibly smooth. The pickup is there. The power is there. Oh my goodness, the braking is amazing. I can actually feel the vibration of the brakes in the back wheel, and then I can feel the drum brake squeezing. It's unbelievable. I'm a big fan. I love it. It's so high off the ground. It's like driving a car versus an SUV. I love it. I'm a huge fan. This thing is a hands down winner for me. And the fact that it's the same price as the ES4 and that it's rain proof. You know how many days I had to not take my scooter because of the rain or the snow? But having this means you can take it. It was just such a great ride. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. I hope you like that. I hope this helped you make your decision about whether or not you should buy the ES4 or the Max. I hope if you were just planning on buying the Max in general, now you know if you want it or not. This scooter is amazing. It's the future of transportation. Don't forget to put on a helmet. Don't forget to yield to pedestrians. Always ride safely. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye. Okay, a couple afterthoughts. First of all, it's worth mentioning that the scooter only goes 18.6 miles per hour during its first 20% of battery life. In other words, from 100% of battery to 80% of battery is the only period where you get to enjoy 18.6 miles per hour. The second thing worth noting is that the scooter has a bicycle handle style brake, which means your left hand stays pretty widely open the whole time in order to grab that brake, which means you don't get a tight, firm grip on that handlebar while riding. This is a little bit different from the ES4 in that it has a thumb switch, which allows you to hold on tightly with both hands. Okay, happy scooting. Goodbye.